Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I'd like to discuss the Tories' latest attempt to drive a wedge in our society with their new definition of extremism, which actually classifies the Conservative Party and many of its MPs as extremists. But don't worry, they're not interested in applying the new definition and measures consistently. This is classic divide and rule. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So before we get onto this new definition, it's worth pointing out how we can easily tell that this is another Tory culture war rather than a serious attempt to update our response to genuine extremism. The new definition and measures not only not going to be statutory, meaning the government won't bother asking Parliament to legislate it for it. It has been drawn up by the Department for Housing, not the Home Office. Extremism, genuine extremism, is a national security and policing matter. As such, it's a matter for the Home Office. The Home Office run the Prevent programme, for example, project designed to identify and help people at risk of extremist ideology. So why on earth is the Department for Housing dealing with this now? What's it got to do with builders and architects? Another aspect of the fairly blatant culture war nature of this new drive is that Michael Gove has named multiple organisations that he says potentially fall foul of his new definition. He's going to investigate them. We're going to investigate. So why not investigate first before announcing the names of these organisations to Parliament? But he refused to name them outside of Parliament. That is because anything he says inside Parliament is protected by parliamentary privilege. You can't sue him for it. If he were to say the same things in a TV interview, for example, might face legal problems. So if Gove refuses to name these same organisations in a future interview, it's because his government lawyers have advised him that he really doesn't want to. Finally, before the definition itself, this has not come about as a result of, say, a year-long review, taking evidence from various experts and stakeholders. No, this is a knee-jerk reaction. The Tories came up with this idea of weaponising the definition of extremism to distract from their incompetence in government 2 weeks ago. Actually, just under 2 weeks ago. It's all been managed by Michael Gove. Counter-extremism officers and officials have not been asked to contribute, nor have external legal experts, nor have community groups who deal with extremism. Nobody who actually understands extremism has been consulted over this 2-week-long brain fart. But anyway, the definition itself. What are the government now saying extremism is with their new non-statutory guidance? Extremism is the promotion or advancement of an ideology based on violence, hatred, or intolerance that aims to 1. Negate or destroy the fundamental rights and freedoms of others, or 2. Undermine, overturn, or replace the UK system of liberal parliamentary democracy and democratic rights, or 3. Intentionally create a permissive environment for others to achieve the results in 1 or 2. So let's see now. Brexit was based on intolerance of other Europeans and negated our freedom of movement. Are Tory Brexiteers extremists now? Frank Hester expressed a desire to hate all black women because he was intolerant of Diane Abbott. He also expressed a wish for a fairly graphic form of violence towards her. Is the only reason he's not classified as extremist? Because Michael Gove has said he's not an extremist. So is the only reason he's not because he isn't using this clear hatred, intolerance and wish for violence in order to destroy rights or replace parliamentary democracy? What about Tory MPs who want the UK to leave the European Convention on Human Rights? They are literally wanting to destroy an awful lot of fundamental rights. Is Andrea Jenkyns an extremist now? Also, given that Sunak wants to use his Rwanda safety bill to negate fundamental rights as part of the same intolerant ideology, is the Prime Minister himself, along with every MP who voted for the third reading of the bill, an extremist? If we're not careful, we're actually going to end up finding out that the only Tory in Parliament that isn't an extremist is Lee Anderson here. And what is the reason for this new definition? Actually, purported reason, because we know the real reason is another desperate attempt to restore some Conservative support, hive off a few votes back from Reform UK. The government say it's so they don't accidentally encourage or fund extremists. This new definition, as I've said, is not statutory. It won't be an independent body judging whether certain groups are or are not extremists. It won't form the basis of any criminal investigations or prosecutions. This will be a case of ministers deciding, and, when they decide an organisation falls foul of this definition, they can bar any individuals or organisations that they say fall foul of it from public bodies, having contact with public bodies, making sure they cannot possibly access public money for, say, community work, for example. But the entire promise of this reasoning is that the government have, up until now, been promoting and funding extremist groups themselves, albeit unwittingly. Because what all this announcement today, or for all the hoo-ha about this new definition, it's something, because as I say, it's not part of the criminal justice system. It doesn't inform criminal investigations. They still use, as far as I can tell, the currently legislated legal definition of extremism. This is a new one specifically for ministers to stop groups accessing public money and having access to government departments. So there's an obvious question. Why has the government, of which Michael Gove has been a very senior member ever since it came into being in 2010, why has this government been promoting and funding extremist groups? And why does he think that a quick scribbled down change of definition will stop him funding extremists for the next 14 years? Indeed, as part of the debate today, Labour's Angela Rayner, Gove's opposite number, pretty much asked the same question. Gove's response to why he and his government had been engaging with extremists, accidentally of course, for 14 years, was that perhaps the guidance wasn't good enough. In which case, why did it take 14 years to come to this conclusion? And why did they spend just 2 weeks updating the guidance without discussing it with anyone who actually deals with extremism in the UK? Also, Gove said that he will be very careful about labelling groups as extremist, and the government will show they're working when they do so. But he did name 5 organisations today, and although he said, they may meet the definition, they may not, he still named them without any reasons given. I'm not sure MPs on either side of the House who were expressing concern that this may be used to suppress free speech should really believe Gove that he's going to exercise caution when naming groups, when he has just named 5 groups, and therefore, implied that they are likely to be found guilty. And the concerns were not, as I said, only raised from the opposition benches. There were quite a number of Tory MPs, including the former Home Secretary Priti Patel and former Policing Minister Kit Malthouse, expressing concern themselves. Malthouse said that this risked allowing individuals to be blacklisted from large parts of public life without the right of appeal. Because a huge part of this new policy is that ministers will just choose who does and does not fit the new definition, and there's no appeal. There's no process of appeal in the decision. It's final. Minister just says, a minister looks at an organisation, they just have to say, yeah, we think they're extremists, and that's it. It's done. Can't appeal. Now, people will be allowed to take the government to court if they think they've been unfairly labelled. There will be a legal process, but that's expensive. Not everyone can afford to take the government to court. Now, some of these Tory MPs, I believe, will be genuinely concerned about the threats of freedom of speech here. There are Tories, and I know it sounds odd given what they've been voting for in the last few years, but there are Tories who genuinely value freedom of speech and they will back all sides, not just their own. But I wonder if some who were expressing concerns were doing so because they know that what Gove has done here is made ministers the final arbiter of who can and cannot access public funds or engage with government departments, because that's all this is about. Never mind all the window dressing about the actual definition, the wording of the definition of extremism. What this is about is a way of letting ministers say that organisation is not able to access these government departments or access any public funding. That's what it is. It's like Malthouse says, it's a blacklist, right? What they're doing is giving ministers the power to decide who is on that blacklist. And ministers are very soon going to be their political opponents. Are they so sure that Labour would not be as wicked as they and refuse to use this new power to their own political advantage? I think there will be more than a few otherwise unscrupulous Tory MPs who, you know, if they were riding high in the polls, would go, oh yeah, this is fine. Oh yeah, we're totally going to use this responsibly. Who are right now wondering if it is wise to be loading up even more powers for the government, draconian powers like this, when that government is very soon going to be run by Labour, and maybe for a very long time to come. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.